Hello everyone and welcome to the Saturday tier, the sprint race event at Monza. Round 2 here for the Italian Grand Prix. Let's get it. Summer Season 4. Sir Maxon currently on top as Niffo was king as they got to turn 1. But on the exit of the first and second corner in the first chicane, Sir Maxon's managed to get there. And they took pole position, or not for now. Sir Maxon gets it on the exit once again. They took pole position here for the sprint race yesterday in the Friday tier, an 18.250. They then went 2 tenths quicker, or around about 2 tenths quicker, to go and then get pole position in the main race as well with an 18.075. Heischler, 18.403, and Niffo, an 18.793. That was yesterday's sprint top 3. Sir Maxon looking tidy so far and holding on to the top spot. Niffo's dropped down the order as Tom's looking good in the Haas. Zingy now looking to try and get a bit of a better qualifying position compared to what they had in yesterday's sprint, which caused them to lose out big time. Sir Maxon across the line, pulling it to the right-hand side, and it's going to be a pole. Position time, an 18.086 was that. Very close to the time that they got yesterday in the main qualifying session. A brilliant lap from Sir Maxon, but a lot of cars not setting laps right there. That's huge from everyone. Sir Maxon an 18.086, then Zingy an 18.902. So that was slower than Niffo's P3 yesterday, and then Tom in P3. All the other cars disqualified. That's why they went further back. That's Eager Pro, that's Niffo, Devon Young, and Heischler. Race director, just in case, and we'll be back for the sprint. We'll see you in a sec. The conditions are wet. Ready, hold, go! Who's going to get it into turn on the inside line for the Scotsman on the traction with the controller? Will they have it into the first corner? Sir Maxon gets away well. The Aston Martin of Eager Pro is right behind, but not able to do anything. Oh, locking up the rears was Zingy. They've cut the corner in the end. Sir Maxon getting contact from behind, and they ended up losing out massively. Side by side with Devon Young and Niffo, basically contact as they were trying to struggle for traction with each other. We've got a mix of inters and softs right here as we'll quickly get them on the screen just about now. It's inters for Nifoyan, Zingy and Sir Maxon, all looking to try and do a more straightforward strategy, but it's not so straightforward to try and stay on the track right now. Heischler goes ahead of Eager Pro in the next few corners, but still Niffo all over the place with the traction, and it's Devon Young who's ready to go for a move on the exit of the second Lesmo. as Niffo goes all the way to the exit curb and over it as well, so probably finding themselves a themselves a track limit warning there. They're only going to get quicker and they should have the advantage. But Zingy, a brilliant launch, getting side by side, locking up the rears into the first corner, not actually making the corner. So Samaxon is going to be pretty frustrated with that one. But because Samaxon was hit from behind, the Zingy's going to argue that, well, actually, the car that I was racing ended up losing out, so there's not really much I could do. I went off the circuit, slowed down to avoid getting a penalty, and that is how it went. 1 second advantage Zingy has here with the fastest lap, as it is the first lap we've set in this Grand Prix. 9/10. Samaxon trying to bring it down a little bit on the straight, but with track position and the wet conditions, it's so difficult to do much about it. That is, Eager Pro almost going into the back of Devon Young, as Devon Young is trying to figure out what Heischler's doing up ahead. That means that Nifoyan was very close to having a go at making some sort of move, but for now they stay where they are. Intermediate tyres seem to be fastest up front right now, but Nifoyan's got to try and get these warmed up. And they're in the dirty air, of course. We've got Zingy, who doesn't have any dirty air. We've got Samaxon, who's got 9/10 ahead of them. So it may be going to be a little bit easier for Nifo now the cars ahead have broken away. But as I said, they're expected to get faster and faster on this intermediate tyre. The dry line, or the drier line, will kick in. And then, according to at least last year's physics, the inters will get faster, even though it tells you that the wet tyre is the fastest tyre. We can see that from Zingy, 6-time F1 champion, and Samaxon, the reigning LSI F1 champion as well. The top two running away with it a little bit. Heischler sitting in P3. They've got Devon Young for pressure, but Devon Young has dropped back a little bit. Eager Pro is equally far behind the Red Bull driver. It's just about who can stay consistent and who does or doesn't make a mistake. Nifoyan seems to be finding a groove now. On luck 3 out of 9. Tom, unfortunately, having a few issues here in the wet. Their favourite circuit, Monza. But not easiest time in these conditions. I have been told that the main event should be all dry. I believe that is the case. We'll double check it later on and you'll see what it's going to be once we do load into the lobby, but I do believe it's going to be all dry for this one. Eager Pro just spotting their braking point with Devon Young just up in front, and Nifoyan's going to be trying to bring some gap back from that if they can, but 1.9 seconds is the gap now, so they continue to struggle a little bit actually on the intermediate tyre. But Heischler doesn't have an answer to the top two right now, who are running away with it, and I have a feeling that F125 physics with the dirty air and track position that Zingy has and produces, dirty air wise, they are probably going to be in a very strong position, and I don't think Samaxon's going to be able to find a way through on the Scotsman. Although they took the victory in the pole positions yesterday in every way possible, it's not going to be the same kind of thing here today. Samaxon took victory yesterday twice. They're going to try and do it again. They took pole yesterday twice. Samaxon's taken pole so far, but it might be a denial of victory in a few laps' time if Zingy still holds on and isn't making these mistakes. 2.4 seconds. Heischler, no answer to the cars in front, but they've got cars on similar situations as them. Niffa once again stabilising the gap, but then they've just gone over track limits and then extended a little bit further. Unfortunately, that's because if you go over track limits, generally you actually lose time. So it's annoying, but you usually lose time when you do extend track limits. That's Niffa again going over, and it just seems to be impossible to get a grip around this circuit. As you can see, Heischler all over the exit of the second, or first Lesmo I should say. So was Igor, and Devon Young is going to try and have a go surely at something with that, but no, nothing will come of it. Samaxon definitely got a lot closer than they have before on the back of Zingy right now. Realistically, I feel that in the wet conditions you should try and make a move sooner rather than later, as soon as you possibly can, as soon as there's an opportunity to make the move. Samaxon looking ready to do that into the first corner as they're 2 tenths behind. They just touched the grass a little bit, got on the throttle a little bit too early. That allows Zingy to stabilise the gap, but the slipstream will kick in. And there will be a big old toe that Samaxon will get. Zingy's still trying to hold on to it. They know what's at stake here. They stay to the outside. Now they pull to the middle of the circuit to force Samaxon on a slightly more inside line. Turn into the corner. Very deep for Samaxon as there's a slight bit of contact, but going all the way wide. Getting the traction down still. Trying to pull to the right-hand side to make a decision. And it's going to continue to be a drag race through turn 3 and into 4. The outside line is Samaxon, but it's still ahead. Will Zingy get there by the braking zone? They have the inside line. They're going to try and hold it. They have to give the space, but no, they take the racing line as they see the Haas driver backing out. And that was very, very well defended by Zingy right there. As close as it's ever going to get. And these guys, in the meantime, have extended by a couple more tenths as well. Very, very treacherous conditions, but brilliant racing from the top 2. And we're about to see a bit of a situation between Heischler and Devon Young, as Heischler had great pace yesterday. Wet conditions doesn't seem to be quite so there. On the exit, losing it all. There's the momentum gone, and Devon Young not willing to make the move right now, staying behind. I'm surprised at that because they're going to lose all that momentum and then they won't be able to contest into the first corner. As you can see, Heischler's just nailed that final corner. Although I say that, they've got on the throttle at least early enough. Now Devon Young, 5 tenths behind, is gaining a little bit, but I don't think they're going to be gaining enough to go for a move into the first corner. So trying to save themselves a few moments ago means that they ended up screwing themselves over into the first corner. As I said, in the wet conditions, if you have an opportunity to go for a move, you have to take it. It's just not the same in the dry. You don't get DRS, you don't get clean braking. You have to go offline to really brake where you want to brake, and then it just completely changes. The slipperiness of the circuit is brutal. Igor trying his best right now. Currently P5, looking at 4 points for the sprint race here. Tom Robb, as long as they finish this race, they scored 2 points, 3 points for Nifo, 4 points for Igor, 5 for Devon, Heischler, 6, 7 for Samaxon, and 8 for Zingy. Maximum points it would be, as they can see Nifo in the rear wing now finally beginning to bring the gap back. 5 tenths is Devon Young behind. It's 4 tenths now with Samaxon behind Zingy. Not as close as they were before when we saw that offensive attempt by Samaxon to go for the move. They did back off eventually, but they went all the way from the start-finish straight into turn 4. That's where they battled, and that gap was about 2 tenths of a second. Samaxon using the battery again to try and have a go, forcing Zingy into an uncomfortable position by forcing them to use their battery, putting a fastest lap in there, showing what they can do, but still not scaring the Scotsman, who stays ahead and controls this pace. Doesn't seem to be the faster car, and statistically isn't the fastest car. But with the track position, as long as you keep yourself nice and wide, there's not much you can do about it. Almost losing the position here as they went into turn 3 last time around. The inside line was for Samaxon throughout the entirety of turn 3, but then by the time they got to the mini straight bit before you get to turn 4 in the second chicane, Zingy managed to pull it in front again anyway, and that really gave them the advantage to have the confidence to be able to take the racing line. You really do have to send it if you do want to take the racing line, because otherwise you leave the space for the other car and then you're in trouble if you try and then cut them off, because you then get involved in an instant. You got to be careful with how that one goes. Oh, Samaxon's already going for it. I didn't believe it. Oh, Zingy's gone off the road to try and regain the position. Samaxon's now got the run. Zingy's going to surely have to back off after that one, and they will back off, but they're going to come back through. Samaxon's slowing down now. I don't know what just happened there. Samaxon made the move. Zingy went off the circuit, regained it, gave it back. Samaxon gave it back. So Zingy is completely in the clear now and stays in front. I do not believe it. Samaxon just made the move fair and square, and that's all going to change. But Samaxon is going to give it another shot here into turn one under braking. They back off though, and they let it be for now. Zingy a little bit over the place on the exit curbs, and Samaxon trying to get there on the traction, and they almost do. They pull to the right hand side, but I don't think they're going to have it. Now they go to the outside line, and they'll have to stay there. Zingy on their defensive throw. It's the inside line for the Haas driver, but it's Zingy who's ahead, and he's trying to do everything he can, and I think he's just got the job done. But it's still a drag race. Opening up the steering on the exit is Samaxon to try and have the traction, but no, they've gone on the wet line, and they're going to go wide. They've given it everything just there, but they didn't quite get the job done, and Zingy has managed to hold on by the skin of their teeth. It doesn't get closer than that. Somehow, the Scotsman is ahead. I would argue Samaxon should be ahead, but they gave the position up. I don't know why. Oh, it's side by side, and it's hard to the inside line there, as Devon Young was trying to force Heischler, and they are going to force Heischler off that line, but it all of a sudden goes completely the opposite way, as Heischler was, although slow, through turn 9 into 10, they still have the advantage, and they could close the door. We're not going to see a contest between the top two as they go for their final lap here, as Zingy goes for a fastest lap in turn as well as they push each other. But it's Heischler and Devon Young that we might see go for a battle. No time penalties, completely equal for these guys right here. Devon Young's ahead, the braking zone is upon us. It's Heischler who's trying to give it everything, but I think the Red Bull's done it, and they have the traction on the exit. They have the racing line, and it's Nifo as well making the move on Eager Pro with the fastest lap for the Dutchman as well, really showing that these Inters do eventually get pretty quick. They are the quicker tyre right now, but it's a little bit too late, isn't it? Oh, it's still side by side with Devon Young and Heischler. He's going to try and hold it along round the outside. That's never going to work. And Devon Young is P3 in the race. 1.5 seconds. Nifo closes up massively as these cars fight just up ahead of them. But with the time penalty, that's never really going to change, I don't believe. Absolutely incredible stuff here right now. Devon Young's managed to make it work, but it's Zingy who has done everything they could, running the purple lid, and they're going to take it once again to the top step of the podium, at least for the sprint for now. Zingy comes round the final corner to win once again in LSI. They win in F1 2025. They win the Italian sprint race. Round 2 for the Saturday tier. It's Samaxon in P2. Zingy takes back that fastest lap from Nifo. It's then Devon Young in P3 who manages to get ahead. And there is Heischler. There is Nifo Jan, who was very close at the very end as well, as Heischler either slowed down or ran out of fuel once again as they did yesterday. Absolutely incredible. What a race that was. What a race that was. Dramatic in every way. Very complicated throughout. That's Zingy taking the victory with the fastest lap to complement. That's Samaxon in P2 and Devon Young in P3. Heischler, Nifo, Eager Pro and Tom. That is the session results saved, and then we go through the race director just in case if we need to a little bit later on. We'll go back up there and double check it one more time. And we'll be back in a bit for the main race. In about 5 to 10 minutes, we'll see you then. That is the first time so far that Samaxon hasn't won in Italy this game. Will they be able to do it for the main race? Hello everyone, welcome. Sorry, not welcome. Thank you very much for waiting. We'll be back in a few moments and then we will welcome you to the stream for qualifying. Welcome back to LSI, welcome back to the Summer Season 4 Saturday tier, Round 2 Italian Grand Prix. And welcome to Monza, the Temple of Speed. We are currently underway with the main qualifying session. We've just finished the sprint side of the event with the one-shot sprint qualifying and the sprint race, 9 laps of Monza. We now get ready for the main race with the main qualifying to set the grid. We've had a few drivers already set their lap times with a brilliant lap from Heischler already, a 17.939. We saw pole position time of an 18.075 in exactly the same conditions yesterday. So that is a big improvement already. It was P2 for Heischler in 18.081 and in Igapro in 18.406. And so currently Samaxon would still be sat P2 if they were to do that yesterday, but they wouldn't have beaten Heischler right now. They haven't beaten Heischler right now. 18.523 for Devon Young at the moment. We saw an 18.0 something, I think an 18.086 maybe, if I'm correct in remembering, from Samaxon in qualifying just a few moments ago. It was an 18.9 from Zingy. That was the sprint qualifying session, of course. A few cars will have been running a bit higher downforce to get that job done because they knew it was going to be wet for the sprint race, and they knew that Part Ferme would be reset for the situation that we're in now, which is the main part of qualifying. So it's been a little bit of time since that's been the case, and now we are back out on track once again. Zingy has set an 18.275, faster than their lap earlier on today. They didn't set a lap in qualifying for the sprint race yesterday, but they did set a lap yesterday in the main race. Unfortunately, they were spun out in the opening corner after a collision with Willy Tudrilli, who broke way too late into the first corner and ended up taking out a few cars. We hopefully won't see that happen today, but also hopefully we can see what Zingy can do in a race that is undisturbed. The same for everybody else, because that first corner was very, very catastrophic for many. That was a bit of a tongue twister there for myself. You see Tom out on track now. They did race yesterday for Red Bull. Sorry, they were meant to race for Ferrari, but they did a last-minute switch to Red Bull to race with their last season teammate from the F1 tier at Red Bull, Devon Young. They don't have the ability to do that here in the Saturday tier because Jean-Claude Fontana does have that Red Bull seat, although they did not make it to today's race last minute due to some technical difficulties. Heischler currently still holding the top of the times, but Samaxon is out there to try and take that back. Tom is going to be the one to set a lap first out of the 3 that are on out laps right now. We do see, I believe, Nifo already on their way out. Or no, that's never mind. Not them on their way out. It's just a little bit of a gap in the grid we can see from the pit lane. But we can see 3 cars at least still, or currently, out on track right now. Zingy once again leaving the pit lane to go and set another qualifying lap here in Monza. And Tom heads to the first corner, braking as late as they dare, riding that first corner, avoiding the second sausage curb, but getting all over the red and white curb, or red, white and green curb here in Italy, just to try and keep everything together. And then into the second chicane, riding over the curbs as hard as he possibly can and avoiding the gravel on the exit, but unfortunately Tom has just hit that gravel, and that's probably gonna close the lap off from being too far ahead, although they haven't set a lap so far, so they're gonna still be able to set something That is for sure. And I'm sure they're going to try and push a little bit further. We've got Samaxon, who I don't know if they've had an issue at the first or second chicane into the first sludge mode, but we will go on board with the pole position master that we've seen many times in the past and so far in the F1 25 game, going purple in the middle sector as they improve relative to Heischler, who's currently right behind them out on track but ahead of them in the timing sheets at this stage. That is Tom Robb setting their lap 19.8, and it's going to be Samaxon at the final corner to try and improve. What's it going to be? 8 minutes on the clock for the Polish driver in the American team. It is a 17.925, and the margins are close. Heischler goes again to try and prove once more. It's Zingy who heads to the first corner. Once again, riding that second curb quite hard. It's definitely a risk that you can take and gain some time if you feel comfortable doing it. But from what I've seen in general, that's not the fastest way through the corner. So Zingy maybe losing some a little bit in that first chicane. A little bit of a lag spike there. And that's from our side. So hopefully no more lag spikes. We'll actually take a moment to double check what we do have with our situation, and we should be good. There is no reason for us to have any issues, so I do apologize for the delay, but hopefully that is everything completely done. That is unfortunately invalidating their lap as we went off the screen, so they go straight back in. It's going to be Heischler who also invalidates in the end, so it's Devon Young who's on an outlap here, and they've got Samaxon directly behind them, but of course Samaxon is on an in-lap, so no one is really worrying about that at the moment. It's Nifayan who currently sits in a position to try and go for a lap, and then we'll go to Devon Young, who's just begun their next lap. They've done an 18.5, Nifo an 18.637, going incredibly quickly yesterday, getting a P3 of course in qualifying, and then P3 in qualifying for the sprint, and then P4 for the main race. Didn't quite get the time that they set in the end, but with Igor doing an 18.406, they were only just off of that. So we know what Nifo can do here. We know they've got at least a couple of tenths in them, but it seems that many drivers are going faster than they did yesterday. Igor Pro already, even with more time in this session, has done a 4.36 versus their 4.06 from yesterday. So progress has been made, and Nifayan is going to be looking to try and push, although they're actually going again. So I do apologise, my mistake, I didn't witness that earlier. Oh, and that's Devon Young unfortunately validating in the Ascara chicane, and they are going to end up struggling a little bit with that one. It's Heischler who's just up ahead but staying on a lap. They actually went once more, and this is going to be an attempt here for pole position, as they are P2. The only place they can go is pole position, but no, it's Heischler straight into the pit lane as they give in on that lap in the end. Nifayan is using their battery and pushing to the limit as best as they can into the first chicane, 4 tenths down though, so a tricky first part of the lap. It's a fairly quick lap and a very quick pit lane, so they do have time to go into the pit lane once more and go again. We'll see what they do over the sector line, and then we'll head over to Igor, who's beginning their final, what is likely to be their final stint, finding 2 tenths as Nifayan in the middle sector and looking to try and gain maybe a little bit more in the final as they try to catch up to Devon Young, who validated their previous run, just making that little bit more difficult for themselves in the final stage. Fling it to the right as Heischler did, and they go into the pit lane. So Igor Pro is the one to watch next. A brilliant performance yesterday, P2 for the Serbian, as they had a moment where they looked for the lead of the Grand Prix, but the tyres just weren't quite there. Still though, with the tyre strategy that they called, that P2 was brilliant, getting ahead of Bassoon before Bassoon unfortunately had that puncture in the end, and promoting Jericho Willis to be the eventual podium sitter for P3. Unfortunately not here today for the race, but we do see Eager Pro go once more. 18.436, their record yesterday, and 18.406. Looking to better that, but they go all sideways into the first chicane. Is that going to be their lap aborted immediately, as they've only got 4 minutes left on the clock, and they would have a very difficult time in doing this lap, then going in and coming out again, unless they go into the pit lane immediately after this lap, and then go out one more time. They're still continuing with the lap for now, pushing onwards, and we'll see what they can do in the sector line, as they will be all over the exit curve there in the first Lesmo. Down the straight, using the battery still towards Ascari. Here is the sector line for sector 3 of when it begins, and they're 4 tenths down at the moment, so it looks like they're actually pushing to try and get to the pit lane instead, to have one more final go, it seems. Tom also leaving the pit lane at the moment. 3 minutes on the clock and it's crunch time. Qualifying is almost up, and there's not many opportunities to make more progress here in Monza, ready for the race start, where the points really do count. There is Eager Pro into the pit lane. Nobody else leaving so far. Still trying to leave it as late as possible to gain from the track evolution. So if that's to be the case, then Tom Robb has really pulled it quite early, and is going to miss out on some peak performance from the circuit's condition, but they're at least going to get a clean lap as their teammate leaves the pit lane, but they didn't even see them. There's some Max on behind, and they head into the first corner completely on their own, staying away from the second curb, getting the throttle down still. Currently in last place in 19.8. Need to find 1.2 seconds to catch up. 1/10 ahead on their previous best in the first sector, but unfortunately braking a little bit too late and messing up the exit of the second chicane. Lesmo 1, Lesmo 2. DRS available on the exit, but in the gravel. And that's going to be the invalidation done for Tom Robb. And they either wait, they hold off here, or that's probably going to be it. Very slow cars moving right there. 1 minute 40 seconds. Tom has to save the battery if they want to go one more time. And then we'll see what they can do. Their teammate directly behind them, looking to defend pole position. And I think this is the man to watch when we go for these final runs. We're going to watch the entire lap from Sir Maxon. That's 17.925. Got ahead of Heischler, who wasn't able to set an improvement lap. Here's the final corner for Sir Maxon. Not exactly opening the lap up ideally. Not bad at all though at the same time. DRS and ERS down the straight into the first corner. A little bit of a distant tow from their teammate, but not too much, as they just go over that entry curve very nicely, over the second curve as well, just riding over the striped curve. That is a 5-place grid penalty after a collision with Heischler for Zingy and Heischler. That is an invalidation for the beginning of their lap. It's Heischler not with damage, so I don't know what happened, but they're just going to get that grid penalty, and there's not much they can do about it. Back with the man who's currently on pole position, very wide on the exit of the first Lesmo and the second one as well. Not afraid to use it. I thought usually a few drivers would try to avoid it because of the bottoming out, but so far so good here for Sir Maxon, who's 2 tenths up on their lap time. Purple in the middle sector, of course they are, as they are the fastest car right now. And what's it going to look like as they go around the final corner for the qualifying king and the reigning champion in LSI? DRS will not be available by the time they get to the line. That's going to be, I think, Eager Pro done. There's a yellow. That's actually Zingy finish with qualifying. It's a 0.795 from Sir Max on here in Monza. Heischler over the sector line as they get to Ascari. What's it going to be? Oh, they're a little bit down, and I don't think they're going to find the improvement that they need to have a go here at Sir Maxon. It's an invalidation as well. Zingy invalidates once more, so their lap is done. It's Egapro who is going for it. Nifo to P3 and 18.1. Absolutely awesome. Awesome stuff there from Nifo, and they will stay ahead. They will qualify ahead of Zingy and Tom Rob. It's Egapro and Devon Young who are yet to see cross the line. Here we go with the Serbian driver. Oh, what a lap, and 18.3 is not going to be enough to get them further ahead. Still very competitive, and they get their best lap. Devon Young right behind. I think they may have gone to the pit lane if I'm not mistaken. And that is going to be the grid place penalty for Zingy, who will start the Grand Prix in last place after all of that effort. It's Sir Maxon on pole position, Heischler in P2, and Nifo with a brilliant P3 in the last second there. It would have been nice to see what the ideal laps were for every driver, because I think we've got a lot of pace in this grid right now. The top 6 all within 1 second. For the final time here in Monza. Ready, hold, go! Who's going to get it into turn 1? Sir Maxon on the outside line once again for I don't know how many times this weekend. Nifo right behind. They want to have a look. They switch back to the outside line. It's Heischler who's going to come in hot into turn 2. Contact was made, but Sir Maxon still is ahead, and they will not be able to get into the lead like they did yesterday of the Grand Prix. Nifo holds on to P3. They've got Devon Young though with Egapro fighting just behind them. Devon Young to the inside line. Are they going to get there? They do make the move quite simply. That's Zingy ahead of Tom Rob. That's Heischler ahead. The new race leader, as there must have been a mistake there for Sir Maxon because it slowed down Nifoyan and allowed Devon Young to get through. Egapro has just lost a position to Zingy. No one with damage, no one dropping away, but big switches. As Zingy goes to P5 already, it's Nifo down to P4, and it's Heischler into the lead of the Grand Prix. They did eventually get there on the opening lap, and I want to have a look at the tyre situation. A few drivers made a few mistakes tyre-wise yesterday, and now they've tried to make some adjustments. The one-stop seemed to be faster, but definitely more difficult to get working. So we'll see what is going to be done, who goes for what call. the medium tyres for most of the drivers, except from Devon Young, who, despite being on the harder compound, has had a brilliant start, is looking to the inside line, goes back to the racing line, though. It's going to be, oh, Eager Pro completely missing it on the brakes, locking up the rear end and spinning the car, luckily ghosting as they don't get involved in a collision with Tom Robb. Very, very, very fortunate for the German and also for the Serbian. Eager Pro will continue this race just about 7 or 8 seconds behind this pack, who is going to be very, very quick. Also bad news for Tom, because the car in between them and the cars in front has now dropped away. DRS has all of a sudden disappeared. Heischler 4 tenths ahead of Sir Maxon, your pole sitter, losing the lead of the Grand Prix instead of turn 2 losing it. They ended up losing it on the exit of 4 and 5. So an interesting one there for Sir Maxon, but a brilliant opportunity to be spotted by the Dutchman. They got that run, they pushed for it, and they knew what they wanted to do. They knew they wanted to be ahead, as Sir Maxon, once being in front, led and never looked back. Of course they pitted, but net race leader wasn't contested. It's Devon Young sitting in that P3 spot and currently quite enjoying it. I think it's going to be Sir Maxon making a quick look to the inside line, but it's nothing coming of it. Zingy was also spotting their braking point just up in front of them, looking to see if they could find a way. Also from Nifo, trying to force a mistake from any of the cars. It's Tom, who is now 2 seconds away, P6 for them. And it's Eager Pro 7.6 seconds away from Tom Robb, aka Tom Buena. From previous seasons they will have been known by. So they have dropped about 2 seconds further, has Eager Pro, from the lead pack. That's just the power of the DRS. It's the power of Monza. Straight line speed is king, and right now the top 5 drivers are all together and are pulling away from the other 2 on the grid. Despite having a small grid this weekend, you can still have a very good race. And I'll tell you what, we've had some brilliant racing so far this weekend. Heischler now leads the way, but going off the circuit, and Sir Maxon's going to find the momentum for that one. DRS available, and no questions will be asked. Really, though, the question is to be asked from Devon Young, who doesn't seem to be looking for the move, as they can't afford to make the move because they've got no battery. Oh, and they brake so late into the corner to try and gain everything on the brakes to prevent any car from behind on that faster tyre at this stage of the race from having a go. We have been told by the drivers that the hard tyre is so much better than the medium tyre. They say that the medium tyre runs out pretty quickly and the hard tyre has got a lot more consistency. It's much more enjoyable to drive on. So seeing that to be the case, to start the race on the hard tyre, where you feel like you're should be more confident according to what most drivers have been saying, you're going to lose some performance at some point, but you are in the train and you kind of reduce your losses at the beginning of that stint. You're not following along with everybody else, but you could still possibly gain an advantage from it. Devon Young really got a difficult situation to look at right now and a lot of questions to ask, but they've got to make sure that they are careful. Well, this Heischler going for the move into the first corner, not being contested by the Haas. And everybody continues business as usual on lap 5 out of 27. In the meantime, Eager Pro has made some progress on Tom. Tom has lost some time to the cars ahead. Such a shame to see the cars drop out at the beginning, especially of Igor having some brilliant pace. 18.3 being right up there in the mix. Pace-wise, P5 start for them. So only losing 2 positions overall, but with actually a P4 start for Zingy having that grid place penalty in the end, they have lost a fair few positions. I'm just going to double check that one right now. As you can see. So although starting at the back of the pack, P7 isn't too far away compared to what you may usually have if you get that penalty, of course. So Zingy is still very much in this battle. However, they're not able to be within the top 3 that they were hoping to be before. That's an early pit stop from Heischler, and it's a 10-second time penalty again. I do not believe it. I do not believe it. More 10-second time penalties for the pit lane entry here at Monza. It happened back in F1 22 with Sven Nijm, who tried to get the penalty removed but wasn't successful in their appeal. That was before they made their final pit stop though, so they were able to try and appeal it. But now, Heischler, they're going to have to make another pit stop in this race, most likely. They can't really contest that penalty. Going really early as well, suggests they're going for that 2-stop, I believe. And yeah, the hard tyre 10-second time penalty is going to be brutal. Devon Young did lose a bit of a gap and has just lost DRS to Samaxon because of that split, because of Heischler breaking away. And this is Samaxon's opportunity to really give it a shot. Now, Devon Young, if contested by Nifayan behind, has to allow the racing ball to go for it and get the slingshot. Otherwise, Devon's going to end up losing the other cars behind the train, and Heischler's going to be the only one to gain on track at least. But Nifayan 6 tenths behind, not in an optimal position to make an overtake. Devon Young not really having any battery. Nifo is pushing on the battery here to try and give it a shot, but Devon is not really moving out the way, so they're staying as they are, and they don't get that slingshot. To be honest, Nifo didn't really seem to have as much of a slingshot as I thought they may have done. That is a yellow for Igapro, who somehow had an issue, now 17 seconds behind Zingy and only 2 seconds ahead of the Scotsman after having a brilliant result in the Grand Prix yesterday, going from P3 or 4, so going from P3 to P2 in the race. Unfortunately, it doesn't look so simple today. That's a big curb right there for Devon Young, and we've got 3 cars saving batteries down the straight. It's the hard tyre here for the Red Bull driver, who should be getting quicker and quicker. But with Samaxon now, without anybody to contest with DRS behind, is breaking away and creating a gap. One of the fastest drivers here in Monza, in the world according to time trial, is currently being unleashed, and Heischler splitting up the pack has definitely made it difficult for almost everybody else. Igapro stays ahead into turn 11, but Heischler is going to have that move on DRS and probably on grip at this stage. Fresh hard tyres versus slightly worn medium tyres. That's unfortunately a yellow flag, as that is Tom Robb who does lose out a little bit. Heischler goes for the fastest lap and for P5 as Tom gets back on track to continue this race with damage, I believe, on their end plates, both end plates, which is not ideal at all, and it makes the car very difficult to drive. So Max on their teammate, however, in the lead of the Grand Prix, 2 seconds ahead it stays right now, and it's going to be Nifo who is instead ahead of Devon Young, losing a net 3 tenths, but only in the last couple of corners by doing so. So trying to work together here. That was Tom retiring in the pit lane. No safety car will be deployed because of that. And hopefully no one gets caught in the pit lane or stuck in it, and as it used to be, you could get stuck in the pit lane if somebody else retired. That's Zingy looking to make the move on Devon Young very early as they pushed on the battery. I don't know if that was intended by the Red Bull driver, but it's happened. Lots of battery available for Devon. DRS will be available as well, as it looks like they're going to try and go for the double overtake here on Nifo and Zingy. That's not going to work. They're not going to gain any time by doing that, and they've ended up just losing themselves time as they're not taking the optimal racing line. So Zingy is going to be frustrated with that one, using their battery to get ahead of Nifo. and then losing time instead doesn't really make too much sense. Of course, they're on that hard tyre, but when you're in a train, you just want to optimise that straight line speed and then get through the corners. They're on exactly the same tyre as Samaxon, so they should be alright to maintain pace there. Just try and catch up on the straights and use that advantage. But it won't be the case. 2.9 seconds. Devon Young will continue to get quicker and may stay ahead for now, although they go over track limits for the second time in the last couple of laps. So they are pushing the limits. 2.7 seconds. You can see they are pushing hard. They had a lot of battery in that car. They did use a lot of battery to get ahead of Zingy and Nifo in one straight. And they now do start to make some progress. So maybe they have made the right call after all. Although a little bit more complicated than it needed to be. Devon Young, 2.8 seconds, loses it in the final stage of the lap. As they continue to lose from the Titan of Samaxon, who doesn't need to worry about anything right now. That's Eager Pro into the pit lane as they look for some fresh tyres. Earlier than any other medium tyre runner, except from Heichler, of course. Would they look for the one stop? I don't know. So Maxon seems to be extending as far as they can possibly. Three seconds is the gap, and it slowly creeps up as these cars are behind, and surely with the pit stops calling, they're going to make a decision to try and get an undercut here on Samaxon. They're also going to hope that Heichler has been making some good progress on the cars around them, and looking at the gap to the leader, they have been doing so. So Heichler will be leading the Grand Prix at some point. It is zinging into the pit lane, and Nifo follows on behind. No 10-second time penalty this time around. And of course no 10-second time penalty for Eager Pro, although they do have a 3-second time penalty to their name. There it is for the two former teammates, Zingy and Nifo. Will they maintain DRS on one another? That's the question as well. Zingy's going to be looking to push all the way, and they'll gain a bit on the pit lane exit. Squirmy on the exit there for Nifo with the traction, the cold tyres. These two know that they can extend that pit lane exit legally as long as they don't get a warning from the game. A little bit on the grass there for Nifo. That's not going to gain them any more time, and they've actually now found 0.2 of a second out of DRS range. So they've got to push hard, but Zingy's not going to back off because they know that they can try and get an undercut here on Samaxon, and that's going to be their best bet. Now, Zingy is currently on controller, so they will probably have a little bit more tyre wear relative to the other cars around them. But Samaxon, I'm not entirely sure if they're going to try and extend a little bit further. That is a time penalty of 3 seconds for Devon Young, who is going to suffer from that one a little bit. It's Samaxon and Devon into the pit lane. So Zingy and Nifayan will be able to gain some right there on that immediate undercut. Eichel leads the Grand Prix. Well, they will do so right about now. There you go. The Dutchman once again being ahead. This time, though, with a 10-second time penalty. Still interesting to see how their strategy goes, and if it would have been quickest, but no, they go off at turn 2 and get another 3-second time penalty as they cut the corner a little bit too quickly to avoid that time penalty in the end, which is pretty unfortunate. Samaxon, P2, they stay there. They've got cold tyres, Zingy not so, and they will be right in the mix. Now, Devon Young has come out right in between Zingy and Nifayan, and that's actually good news for Nifo, because that medium tyre that's cold at the moment will be quick in a couple of laps time, and it will bring the DRS pack back once again. So Zingy trying to push and gain this gap back with the warm tyres, and it looks like they're going to do such a thing. Devon Young pushing as well, and DRS will be once more. Devon Young's going to lose out a little bit, and Nifo actually making a mistake has just lost out a little bit as well, but they are pushing for that battery. They're pushing with that DRS as well. They do have that DRS on the Brit. Through the corners though, Devon Young gains massively, and I think by the time we get to the end of the straight we should have everyone back in DRS, but no, Nifo doesn't have the momentum on that hard tyre, trying to catch up, and it's so difficult. But we don't know what's going to happen in front. Anything can change, and of course the bunching up can be a big problem. 1.2 seconds once again away from the car in front of them, and they only lose down the straight. But these cars are going to be close. They're going to be bunched, and it's also going to be Devon Young that needs to make progress to make this medium tyre work. So they're going to have to make some overtakes. That will bring Nifayam back into the battle if it happens within the next couple of laps. Devon Young a little bit of understeering to turn 9 up to 10. But still within DRS range. 1.5 seconds as Nifo is not really able to hold on too well. Dirty air for Devon Young on that medium tyre. That's going to make it difficult for them to make any progress. But not impossible. That tyre should be faster for now. So they've got to try and make use of it if possible. 6.8 seconds as there's a 6-lap difference between Heichler and Sir Maxon's tyres. Heichler will be making that extra pit stop, and realistically their strategy was great as long as they didn't get a 10-second time penalty for speeding in the pit lane. But that has come about today, and it will be to Heichler that it goes to. Frustrating stuff, I know. And a 3-second added on their current 3-second as well. Looking at the time penalty situation, it's 16 seconds of time penalties for Heichler, 3 for Devon Young, and 3 for Igapro. Igapro really had a difficult start to this race after their lock-up on the rear end, and unfortunately that basically decommissioned their race. They just completely dropped out. 19.8 seconds now, just trying to get to the end and score some points here. 8 points up for grabs as long as they finish this Grand Prix. A few other cars around them though. With time penalties it is going to be complicated. Devon Young is within striking range of Zingy, and they want to try and have a look at getting clear DRS to have a go here on Sir Maxon. Will they use that battery? Well, it looks like they are using a little bit, but they don't have that much to really push with more so other than to get the fastest lap in the race here. And they just bunch up to the back of Sir Maxon as Zingy does so as well. These two have fought in the past for victories, Zingy and Sir Maxon, and it has been fierce ones for sure. Ended up completely going wrong last season in the LSI F1 tier in Austria, and it was Igapro who took the spoils and the victory in the final lap of that race. Heichler now 5 seconds ahead, more time gained. But Heichler's really just trying to think about something else in this race, really. Trying to get to the end to score points, as they know that time penalty situation is incredibly complicated and very stacked against them, although still not impossible to deal with. Stacked against them. Over the halfway mark of this Grand Prix now. Are we going to see Zingy try and challenge Sir Maxon for a move here? 3.4 seconds, Nifayan just drops away after some unfortunate timing with the pit stops. And of course the tyre compounds as well. Devon Young pushing hard on that medium tyre, along with the cars ahead who had that DRS. Nifa did have the DRS, for a short period on the back of the medium tyre, which I thought might be enough to drag them along into the battle, but it didn't quite pay off. Devon Young is expected to go for a medium tyre again in this race, or at least a second hard tyre in this race. Nifayan, I'm not entirely sure what their intention is here, if they're going to try and go to the end of the Grand Prix. So Maxon might try to go to the end of the Grand Prix as well. I'm not entirely sure either. 3.8 seconds, 3.7 seconds. So Maxon making massive gains on Heischler here. The question is Heischler going to try and stay ahead because they can, or are they going to race their own race and go into the pit lane once the cars behind do catch them? We are almost 11 laps to the end of this Grand Prix out of 27. It's been a long one so far, and we are coming to the closing stages, what you call the end game. And we'll see what can be done. And it's going to be Heischler into the pit lane as expected. So before anybody catches up into DRS and gets involved in the battle, they do go into the pit lane to try and maximise their race. And they're going to go on to, I assume, another set of hard tyres. And it is the 10-second time penalty served, a 6-second time penalty now currently to their name, and a battle with Igor to the end. 3 seconds advantage Igor has right now, and track position. 7-lap-old tyre difference though. That is going to be pretty brutal by the time we get to the end of the Grand Prix. That's going to be about 18-lap-old hard tyres for Igor Pro. Knowing tyre wear in the F125 game, that isn't easy. And again, as I said, 3 seconds that Heischler has to catch now, then the 3-second time penalty advantage that Igor has, along with track position. If they can fight it for a little bit, they might have a chance of finishing ahead of Heischler here and getting that 10 points P5 position. So Maxon leads the way. 6/10 behind is the Scotsman, and it's Devon Young in P3. We have currently, from P1 to P5, every driver has some sort of championship, whether that is F1.5, LSI F1, or both. And it is a competitive field. 9/10 now away from the car in front is Devon Young, as they start to struggle a little bit more on this medium tyre. And it maybe needs to be a call into the pit lane onto another set of hard tyres to the end of the Grand Prix. They would demote themselves a little bit. Not behind Igor Pro and Heischler, but behind Nifayan, who's on that hard tyre looking to go as long as they possibly can. So Maxon tried to go as long as they possibly could as well, to try and maybe have a look at a one-stop if they could. But in the end, it didn't quite work out that way because they had to react to the undercut. They have now pushed a little bit further. Not only has Devon Young lost DRS to Zingy, but also Zingy's lost DRS to Sir Maxon. It's marginal stuff, and they might be able to do enough if they get a good run here, but they don't get a better run. And Sir Maxon pulls the gap towards turn 11, and it's 1/10 advantage. DRS will be no more for the Mercedes car, and Sir Maxon will start to pull away. Is the driver from Poland trying to push her on the battery and have a look at maybe giving the shot to get a gap before they go into the pit lane. Also a safety gap, so they don't get undercut by Zingy or Niffer if they do pit. Of course, they want to try and avoid getting undercut by Devon Young, who goes on to that medium tyre. But it's going to be Igor Pro and Heischler who do switch positions. I was going to say it was going to be a battle, but it looks more like a position switch right there. Devon Young just a couple of seconds ahead, as of course that undercut has gained Heischler a lot of time. But with that 10-second time penalty, regardless, they still do come out behind. That's about a 6-second advantage. Well, actually, maybe even a little bit more by doing that. about an 8-second gain from those really old medium tyres by going onto the fresh hards. Getting rid of DRS as well with Egapro. Egapro will get that DRS back to try and hold on. And they're going to want to try and hold on for as long as they possibly can to see if they can then later hold on to that 3-second time penalty range. And really bring it for this race. It would be difficult. And Heischler, with the warmer tyres, does catch up to Devon Young, but Devon expected to get those medium tyres warmed up very quickly and go very quickly as well. By the time that happens, they will be on their way a little bit. The question is, will Devon Young be able to break the gap enough to be able to not be challenged by Heischler later on? Well, a 3-second time penalty also for Devon Young gives them a 3-second advantage over the McLaren driver. So really it doesn't matter, and they will stay ahead as we expect, at least for now, unless things go terribly wrong on that medium tyre, but I doubt that would be the case. Are we going to see the top 3 pit? That's the question. 17 laps. They're not going to attend on pitting, are they? The stops wise, you can see 1 stop for the top 3, 1 stop for Egapro, 2 stops for Devon Young. DRS is lost by the Aston Martin car, but not gained by Heischler. So Devon has got those tyres warmed up and they're ready to go. It's Egapro 1.5 seconds back now, and that gap is already past the halfway point to be advantage Heischler, as they will try and get that position on net because of their extra 3-second time penalty. The tyre advantage is just going to be too severe, and unless Heischler makes another mistake, it is going to be their position for P5. Not impossible for Heischler to end up P4, but difficult. Also difficult for Devon Young to gain that 17 seconds plus a 3-second. 10 seconds currently to try and gain on Nifayan, who I have a feeling is going to try and stay out on track. We saw Pursoon give it a shot yesterday. They ended up with a puncture. We saw Zingy go into the pit lane towards the end of the Grand Prix, and Sir Maxon following accordingly. They didn't want to pit and end up behind Zingy, so that's why they waited for the Scotsman to go to the pit lane. And I assume they're probably going to do exactly the same thing today. They can see the Haas just ahead of them. They can also see in the mirror the Dutchman following as well. 17.5 seconds. Heischler actually makes progress on the Brit in the Red Bull car, but still more progress being made on by Devon Young on Nifayan. By the time we get to the end of the Grand Prix, would Devon Young have done enough to catch up to the back of that Racing Bull? We're looking at the delta, looking at the time that's being gained. No, it will not. And we could well finish this race in the order that we have right now. Heischler is going to try and make that different. 22 laps of 27. They've still got a few laps remaining of this Grand Prix. They know their tyres are going to be good. They know they're going to be good to the end of the Grand Prix. They know that they'll have the pace advantage. And by catching up already right now, they know that they've got the pace advantage anyway. Struggling with ERS management is Devon Young. So DRS, very possible for Heischler this lap, let alone within the next couple of laps. If they can then get ahead, then they're a chance to be in clear air and extend that 3-second time penalty is very real. That being said though, if you've got a car behind you, you can't just pull away because they have DRS. And especially at Monza, that can be a problem. 5 seconds is the gap that is extended by Sir Maxon now to Zingy. Also 5 seconds between Nifayan and Zingy as well. But right now with the strategy of the top 3, they look like they might be able to cruise fairly smoothly to a P1, 2, 3 finish after a crazy strategy. P7 to P2 for Zingy would be impressive. P3 to P3 and P1 to P1 would be optimal or ideal for Nifayan, optimal for Sir Maxon. 4.9 seconds. They gain it back a little bit on Zingy. But it's really this that we're looking at, as Heischler almost did enough to get that DRS range on Devon Young, but just about missed it. As we've said before, they should, in theory, get quicker by the end of the last few laps. But to really make a move, that's going to be a bit more complicated. 13.7 seconds is the gap that Devon Young has to Nifo. And they're trying to bring it back. They're going to get faster as Nifo, Zingy and Samaxon have their tyres go even further to the limit. But they shouldn't puncture. They're going to get to the edge. They're definitely going to be in a difficult window, are the hard tyres. But will the mediums be even more in trouble? That's the question. Currently, Samaxon and Zingy are under the wrath of Nifo by not pitting. If Nifo doesn't pit and Zingy and Samaxon does, then Nifo will win the Grand Prix. So they're currently at the mercy of whatever Nifoyan does with their tyres. And that is DRS for Heischler, who sits now closely behind the Red Bull car. The McLaren has been looming in the background and waiting for the chance to get that DRS. They finally have it, and they are going to be looking to make that move on track, even if it's not going to be for time penalty. You want to still try and get ahead if possible, just in case something was to happen later on down the line, or even post-race. That's what you've got to consider. You've got to think about yourself here in racing. Your teammate also can be considered, but ultimately, race your own race. And that's what you really need to focus on. That's the best thing you can do in a Grand Prix scenario. 4.8 seconds as Nifo catches a little bit more and maintains the gap on Zingy, but Zingy losing quite a big gap to Samaxon. Lap 25 out of 27 for the race leader. We're about to see Heischler have a go on DRS into the first corner now. They're on 25 out of 27 to begin the penultimate, or the not penultimate lap of the Grand Prix, but almost the penultimate lap of the Grand Prix. That is EagerPro having a mistake there at the final sector, and they do end up getting some front wing damage, so they're going to go into the pit lane for a fast lap. I'd assume Devon Young is passed by Heischler. Very straightforward. The move is done, and they will not be contested. There it is. Devon Young leading the medium charge, but it didn't seem to be the strategy today, unfortunately. Lots of learnings to be done here in the summer season, ready for the official season, and these guys can use it to their full advantage. That's the pit stop, of course, for EagerPro, and we're looking to see what they can do on that tyre. But it's Heischler now who is ahead and 10.8 seconds behind Nifoyan, and trying to gain as much as they can. 8 lap old hard tyres versus 14 lap old hard tyres. Almost double the age at this stage of the Grand Prix. And that is going to be tough to deal with. Devon Young in DRS. Not really the ERS to deploy, so not in a position to overtake, but I think they're still going to try and get it on track just in case Heischler was going to attempt to appeal a time penalty, a 3-second removal. It just makes sense from the Brit to do something about it. And they will have to hold on for a little bit longer. Lap 26 out of 27, the penultimate lap has been begun by your race leader, your championship leader. Well, not your championship leader right now. Actually, no, they do, because they took P2 in the sprint, so they would be leading the championship by, I think, about 1 point. No? Not entirely sure. Anyway, Dave Raptors did have that lead, but now it's going to change into Samaxon's hand after this event. So far, they are the championship leader after the sprint, and they'll continue to gain more points, as Dave Raptors didn't make it to this Grand Prix. Heischler continues to catch up. 8.9 seconds, but the strategy just hasn't been theirs today. Take away that 10-second time penalty, and they'd be right in the mix there with Nifayan. And it would have been very entertaining to see. But right now, doesn't seem to be the beneficial one. Devon Young beginning the final lap of the Grand Prix with DRS to catch back up. But a little bit too far away to make a move under braking. Well away to make a move under braking. And I think it's going to be as it is. It's EagerPro who looks to push. And they are currently going 1.3 seconds faster. Purple in the middle sector as well. That fastest lap will be theirs. But it's Sir Maxim who enters the final sector here in Monza. They didn't win the sprint. They didn't make it 4 victories in one weekend. But they've made it 3. And they have made it 4 poles in one weekend. Almost flawless from the driver that dominated yesterday, and they dominate once again today. Sir Maxim rounds the final corner to win the Saturday tier race in Italy. They win the Italian Grand Prix. Zingy 9.6 seconds in the end behind. They gave it their best shot, but just losing DRS. It didn't work out in the end, but the strategy worked out nicely, and they were not going to be contested. P2 for them. And it's going to be Nifo to P3 in the end. A podium position for where they started. Brilliant stuff. Heischler to P4. Unfortunately for them, they will lose out to Devon Young on that time penalty range. That's a P4 there for them. It's EagerPro with the fastest lap. As they once again improve, it looks like. It's not actually the fastest lap right now, so they're going to have to try and improve further. Half a second right now and still wouldn't be enough. So half a second, they need another 3/10 on top of that. They need 8 or 9/10 to actually go for that fastest lap. We'll watch the times as they go across the line, but we go and view this man who deserves the limelight. The championship leader of both the Friday and Saturday tier now on the second round of the 6-race championship. 2 sprint weekends. That was the first of one. And it was controlled nicely in the Grand Prix format of the race by the Haas driver. There are your accolades. Most overtakes from Heischler. Fastest lap from Heischler as Eagle didn't get there in the end. Driver of the day from Zingy. And the race winner is Sir Maxim, followed by Zingy in P2. Then Nifayan in P3. We've got Devon Young. Heischler with fastest lap. Eagle gave it everything, but didn't quite get there for that fastest lap. P6 for them. DNFing earlier on was Tom Robb. Session results. And the race director to be shown on screen just in case. Track limits can be difficult around this circuit, so it is worth recording. And we'll be back for the post-race interviews. We'll see you in a bit. Welcome back to the Italian Grand Prix for the Saturday tier. Welcome to the post-race interviews. We start with Niffo. Niffo, that was a tough race on DRS, but still a podium. Are you happy with the result, even though the race didn't go quite the way you wanted it to?
I mean, it was better than the sprint, so it was an improvement.
Yeah.
I mean, in one-shot quali, I slipped over my brake pedal and just cut the corner, which meant I started pretty bad, and then gambled on the inters, which I think was a choice that was feasible, maybe the better one. I don't know for sure yet, but I was certainly struggling in the first phase. And I couldn't get into rhythm, and once I found the rhythm, it was too late, and I was way too far back. Already had a time penalty for just understeering everywhere, and that's just my shortcomings in the way, I guess. But you live, you learn, and I'll take it with me for future races. I was too focused on trying to catch up instead of just doing my own races. Can you still hear me?
Yep, we can.
Oh, you can still, okay, yeah, I see it.
Oh, there we go. Now we can't hear you. That's annoying. Hopefully,
So that was good.
There we go. Now we can hear you. It cut out as soon as I said yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So, well, I got points at the end, so that was good. And but yeah, it was the pace was off, and then quali, I put a decent lap in, I thought, for my standards, and then I got negatively impacted by Gijs's Maxwell fighting, and then Devon just kind of flew through, and that kind of ruined my plan. And so yeah, that was kind of annoying. And then I lost the rest of the pit stops, which then basically threw away my race. So I was just trying to keep my tires alive, and for the whole stint, because that was my main priority to try and keep P2, was just keep the tires alive. So I drove off pace, kept the tires alive, and no clue how some Mexican can drive that fast and keep the tires alive, but well done. I have no clue how he did that, because I was driving very much off pace and my tires barely hang on. So, but yeah, it was for my standards. I think it was a good learning experience to try the one stop this time and not get hit in turn one. So, overall, I'm happy, but a lot to be learned.
I guess his driving will have to be studied closely to see what they're doing. But yeah, a good effort. What do you think would have been possible if that start didn't happen and you lost that position?
I think I might have been able to fight with Zingy, because I think the pit stops would have been easier. I think if I went to the pits first, I might have not lost DRS to him, which then negatively. So maybe a P2, but not more than that. So
fair enough. Well, Belgium is up next. DRS, long straights, still going to be a factor whether you're there or not. Do you like that circuit?
Yeah, I like it. I think that's a definite one stop. I'm not sure. So hopefully not too much strategy shambles, and try and get better than I was this week. So
yep.
We'll see.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Really good effort. Congratulations on the podium. We'll see you next time.
Thank you.
And we move on to Heischler. Heischler, that was a difficult one for the pit lane entry in the end. Repeating what happened yesterday, just keeps slipping away in the end. Can you take us through your race? And I think I know what you're going to say, what you think would be possible if you didn't have that 10-second.
No, I wouldn't have won the race. I wouldn't.
No,
I found out...
podium, I mean.
Yeah, podium probably. Definitely, actually, if I look at the gap, because I was within... I would say I was 8 seconds off Niffo in the end.
Yeah, you would have been P3.
Yeah, so without any penalties I would have been P3, but that says that the two-stop was actually not the fastest way. It's a decent way, but not the fastest. You can push all the time, that's fun, but you're depending on others fighting a lot. Yeah. So yeah, it's not the way to go, sadly. But now I learned that. I hope for next time I don't speed in the pit lane anymore. Me and Vince were in the VC as well, and I was immediately just crying and laughing at the same time because it happened again. And I heard from Vince as well that you had the same reaction. So yeah, it happens. You know, I'm not too bothered about it. I learn, like I said yesterday, the feeling in the game is getting better for me after some difficulties. I know what kinds of setup works for me, and I'm just gonna continue on this. I will be able to fight Sibixon, I'm sure of it, on some tracks if I don't get any penalties and just don't do any weird strategies.
For sure. I think you've probably had your entire yearly kind of quota of 10-second time penalty for speeding in the pit lane in this one weekend, so hopefully it doesn't happen again. Belgium, is that a circuit that you like?
Yes, I like it. I have to change some things on my setup I have, but I'll probably be fine on that track.
Awesome. Good that you learned a lot, and thank you very much, Heischler. A really good effort today, good battling, and we'll see you next time.
See ya.
And we move on to Sir Max, and Sir Max, a little bit tricky in the sprint race, but back to normal ways in the main race. Are you happy with that result, or were you hoping a little bit more for the wet conditions?
The wet conditions were never really my biggest. I don't know how do you find it? Wait. I was just never really good in wet conditions, and Zingy, I would say, is, and just made a few mistakes. Went too deep into some corners, so then wanted to just give the position back, and then coming into the last lap made a mistake, touched the curb, touched the grass, almost spun. Yeah, that was it for the sprint. And for the race, before it, I was thinking that I saw while pushing yesterday, I was doing around 5.5% per lap on those hards. So maybe if I am able to keep the tire wear to 4% per lap, I could make it onto one stop. So from the start on mediums, again, I need to fix my starts plus the position. So yeah, then just behind high, I was really saving the tires, just minimizing tire wear, and drove till around lap 12. And then pit up onto hards. Just saving tires and I don't know, doing what I could do the best. I think I finished the race with no track limits, so that's another
impressive
thing. Yeah, because the problem is that I never really pushed. I just was saving tires even at the end, the last few laps, instead of doing like 5.5% per lap. I think I was doing 5% tire wear.
So what do you think is the secret to having a balance of great pace and minimal tyre wear? Is it minimum speed? Is it momentum? Is it just track knowledge?
I mean, I think it could be maybe track knowledge, like, because from what I saw, in Parabolica you get like 50% of your tire wear from the whole lap.
Right.
So if you take it slowly on Parabolica and also, of course, try to not get any wheel spin, you could probably have a still good pace while saving them.
Interesting. Track limits, you said, were pretty good for you this weekend, or actually this race. Belgium, also quite difficult to deal with track limits. It is a longer circuit, so time penalties kind of have less of an effect sometimes, in theory. Do you think you can do well there? Do you think you can stay away from track limits again?
I mean, I think I could. Like in the other league, what was proved again was that a one-stop is the strategy. Maybe I shouldn't be telling this early, but yeah, one-stop is the strategy for the race.
People have figured that out now.
Yeah, like it's not on all tracks, but I still think it's like maybe in most of them.
Awesome. I can't wait for that one, and I hope it goes well for you there. Thank you very much. You are the championship leader in both tiers. Enjoy it, and we'll see you next time.
Yeah, thank you.
And we move on to Zingy. Zingy, well, first win in F1 25 for the sprint, of course. That was a brilliant race. In the main race, it was a little bit more complicated, and DRS was just not enough in the end. Can you take us through your race, and what was the difference between you competing for the win in the main race and being P2?
Well, I think everyone knows the reason why I competed for the win in the sprint race, and that's the weather. the weather always puts me in contention when it's wet. I think people underestimate how careful you need to be on the tyres, and then obviously on the inters, although it is the better tyre, it's very marginal between you doing well and you going off track and crashing. So you need to find that fine limit, and that's what me and Maxon did. Niffle tried a strategy, and he unfortunately was struggling a little bit on those intermediate tyres, as I was told. But yeah, I knew if I got a good start, which I usually do, no matter what the game is, I flew past the Maxon into turn 1. There was a little bit of contact, but it was fine. And from then on, with my 0-0 wings, I was able to just kind of hold them off, have the battery, and I won the race. But for the main race, it was a very difficult circumstance because we were doing the one stop. It is theoretically the fastest strategy. It is very difficult to save, and as Maxon said, track knowledge is important because through Parabolica, Ascari, and the Lesmos, that's where you're going to gain most of your tyre wear. And the hard braking zones actually don't get you much tyre wear, so you can push through there. But it was just impossibly quick how fast he was going out there. And then yes, he pit 1 lap earlier, 1 lap later, but having 75% compared to my 79 was astronomical, and he deserves it as much as anyone else who can save the tyres that much, because I genuinely can't.
It was very, very impressive, and yeah, there's a lot of homework to do for many drivers, but you gave it a good shot. And yeah, again, brilliant racing in the sprint, and thank you for giving us a lot of entertainment for that one. Whether you're there or not for Belgium, it's a very, very different circuit. You didn't get any track limits either, so I'm going to assume that you'll be good for that one. One of the circuits that you got one of your DNFs at, but I don't like to mention that, do I, too often, so hopefully we don't mention that. I didn't actually mention it for this race, to be honest. I'm surprised about that. Yeah, that was one of your most famous moments. I finally got it in the last possible moment. Do you think you can do well in Belgium?
Yeah, Belgium's a track that I've historically liked. I don't know if I went well at it, if I'm honest. I don't really check where I've done well. I know I do well in a lot of places, but Belgium, very fun track. Raw pace isn't there. I need to revise that, evaluate what I need to do, because Samax and Haj, even Niffle is, much faster than me on raw pace. But when it comes to the race, I seem to be better in Niffle anyway than saving the tyres. And I noticed in another race we done at Belgium that I was quicker than Haj as well. So I reckon if I could get those guys out of the way easily, I could maybe give Samax a run for his money. But we'll wait and see. At the moment, he's the one that's beat, so it's going to be very difficult.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Well said. And I just want to clarify, out of the recorded races right now, not fully up to date, 110 races, and he's competed in LSI F1. 108 of those races they have completed. That's a 98% finishing rate. I make jokes of it, but it's not really, it's not going to hurt him too much. He's had a couple of crashes, but still been classed as finished. Your overall LSI rate for every single tier is 95. I don't know how many non-finishes you have for that one. It looks like it's about 7, so that's incredible. So yeah, he's not going to be that hurt from what I've said. Thank you very much, Singy, and we'll see you next time. Well done today.
Thank you.
And we move on to the end of the stream. Thank you very much for watching. It's been a pleasure. We will see you in 2 weeks' time for the Belgian Grand Prix. I can't wait to see you there. Have a good one, and bye-bye.